There's only one city in the world where you can go from a 24/7 party to a swamp to a cemetery, New Orleans. This is filled with airworthy tours, and I'm here to rank the best attractions and landmarks of the Big Easy. Now, our premise is based on you have 24 hours in New Orleans, so what should you do? And our tier ranking list goes by must see, must do, definitely check out, maybe check out, and pass. With that being said, let's get to these rankings. We're in the airworthy lab, so let's get right to it. Number one, we have Armstrong Park. Now, Armstrong Park is a very underrated landmark and attraction in New Orleans. So on the premises, you have a bunch of statues, including one of Louis Armstrong. You also have a statue like the Mardi Gras Indians. But the main thing about Armstrong Park that it does hold is Congo Square. So Congo Square is a very historic site. It's actually a place where the slaves got to gather on Sundays and they sang, danced, made music. But many consider Armstrong Park to be like the genesis of like New Orleans culture, especially when it comes to jazz, the Mardi Gras Indians, and the second line. So with that being said, if you're in the area, it's just behind the French Quarter, so it's not far at all. But right now I'm gonna put Armstrong Park in a strong, definitely check out. Now next we have Bourbon Street. And there's really not much that needs to be said about Bourbon Street. This is basically the 24/7 party, right? But the funny thing about Bourbon Street is that locals hate Bourbon Street. Like locals rarely go to Bourbon Street, which is the funny thing. But as a tourist with just 24 hours, Bourbon Street is a must-see, must-do attraction. However, just watch out when you go because it's very dirty and very smelly. But you can go during the daytime or at night, but definitely check out Bourbon Street. Next, we have the original Cafe du Monde. And this is interesting because I highly recommend you should get a beignet in New Orleans, right? That's a must-see, must-eat type of food. However, the original Cafe du Monde, you can pass because there's usually a long line. It's kind of dirty in there. And you can get beignets from a Cafe du Monde at multiple places around the city. The closest other one to this Cafe du Monde is the one in the Riverwalk Mall. And when you get your beignets there, you actually get a riverfront view. So with that being said, the original Cafe du Monde, I'm gonna have to put it in pass. Next, we have Canal Street. Now, this is kind of an interesting one because you're gonna most likely run into Canal Street if you're coming to New Orleans, especially like the French Quarter, right? It's a major thoroughfare in the downtown center of the city. They got the streetcars, which we'll touch on later. So by default, I'm gonna put Canal Street and definitely check out. I mean, you're gonna check it out regardless, right? Now, next we have the cemeteries. Now, it kind of depends on your vibe for the most part. It's a very macabre aspect of New Orleans, but there's so much history with the cemeteries and the way they're built and just their architectural design and just all that. The cemeteries in New Orleans are a very big cultural identity to the city. So with that being said, I'm going to put cemeteries in definitely check out. We also have a video where we go through a lot of the cemeteries in New Orleans, which you can see in the link box above or below. Quick thing to note about the cemeteries is that most are free. However, some do need a tour guide to get into. Moving on to City Park. Now, City Park is a major urban park, right? It's actually larger than Central Park in New York City. There's a lot of attractions you can do there. There's the Botanical Gardens, the New Orleans Museum of Art, and the Children's Museum. You can cycle or take like the little duck paddle boats and all that. And there's a Cafe du Monde there. But if you only have 24 hours in New Orleans, it's hard for me to put this in a definitely check out or above. So for City Park, I'm gonna put in maybe check out. Next, we have the Garden District. Now this is the only like district that I have on this tier list, right? Because I don't have the French Quarter, right? Because that's an easy must see, must do. But the Garden District is very green, a lot of old mansions. There's a couple of movies were shot in the Garden District. If you ever seen A Haunted Mansion by Disney or have taken the ride at Disneyland or Disney World, the Haunted Mansion is based on the Garden District. Now, the Garden District is about a mile outside the city, which you can get there actually by a streetcar. So it's gonna be an interesting pairing later on down the line. But for now, I'm gonna put the Garden District And definitely check out at the top. Yeah, I put it at the top of definitely check out. Next, we have Jackson Square / St. Louis Cathedral. Now, this is an easy one. This is the #1 landmark and attraction in New Orleans by far. Let me just go ahead and put that in the must see, must do #1. Yeah, you almost can't come to New Orleans and not go to this, right? I mean, again, we have a video that talks about the French Quarter and goes a little bit more into depth about Jackson Square. And there's a little bit of controversy behind it too, but as of right now, this is easily the #1 historical and cultural landmark in New Orleans. All right, we're halfway through. So you know what that means? It's halftime. Make sure to check out our website, www.airworthytours.com, where you can take full immersive 360 virtual tours of the world's most popular destinations. For instance, with our New Orleans tour, you can go from the French Quarter to the swamps to the cemeteries. Each tour comes with a narration as well as music and sound effects to really immerse you into the scene that you're seeing. So check out www.airworthytours.com. All right, let's get back to it, starting with Mardi Gras World. Now, Mardi Gras World is basically a museum / working workshop where they build the floats for Mardi Gras. So when you go there, it's about an hour-long attraction. When you go there, you'll see how they built the floats. You'll learn about the history of Mardi Gras, get to try some king cake. And it's a really fun attraction. They offer a free shuttle to a lot of like the hotels in the downtown section. So with Mardi Gras World, we're going to put that in definitely check out. We'll probably put it behind the cemeteries. Now, I'll put it in front of the cemeteries. Next, we have a plantation tour. Pass. Moving on to riverboats. So there are 2 riverboats, the Steamboat Natchez and the Creole Queen. Steamboat Natchez is an actual real steamboat, so it uses steam to propel it. It's a 2-hour cruise. The Creole Queen is gas still, but you actually get to get off the boat and go to like a battlefield. So it just depends on what you're looking for. I'm not going to separate the two. They also both offered dinner cruises as well. So with riverboats, I'm going to put that in a maybe check out. If you feel like being on the water, you should definitely check it out. But just by and large, just on averages, this is a maybe check out landmark and attraction. Next, we have the streetcar. Now, the streetcar is interesting, again, because it's an actual functional mode of transportation. It's not like the trolley in San Francisco, which is basically just like a roller coaster through SF. People actually use the streetcar both as tourists and as people getting to and from work or events. Now, the Canal Street streetcar is okay. Again, it's a great form of transportation if you live off Canal Street. But the main streetcar is the St. Charles streetcar, which actually takes you through the Garden District and all of Uptown, the Uptown area. But whatever the case is, the streetcar is too much of a cultural and historical landmark not to be in must-see, must-do. Right? So get you $1.25 at the time of this recording and go ahead and just try a streetcar, even if it is for a couple of blocks. Next, we have the SuperDome. Now, the SuperDome is one of the most iconic and legendary sporting venues in the country. Not too many stadiums dominate a skyline like the SuperDome does in New Orleans. You also have some really cool statues on the premises, right, which certain fan bases may not like. And just the overall history behind it, from tragedy to triumph, right, and tragedy again. So with the SuperDome, we're going to have to put that in a must-see, must-do, and I'll put it third behind Bourbon Street total. Next, we have swamps, as in more so swamp tours. So there's 2 types of swamp tours. You got the pontoon slow boat, but of course, I highly recommend taking the airboat. Now, swamp tours are a lot of fun. You'll see a lot of wildlife. You're almost guaranteed to see alligators. So with swamp tours, I'll put swamp tours I'll put it at the top of definitely check out if you get a chance. The only thing is with swamp tours that kind of takes it a point down is that it will be about 45 minutes to an hour outside the city. So again, if you only have 24 hours in New Orleans, that could take up a lot of your time, but I'll put the swamp tour at the top of definitely check out. And then last, we have the World War II Museum. This is a very interesting one because this is a fantastic museum. Great, right? Like if this museum was in Washington, D.C., this is a must-see, must-do attraction. However, we're talking about New Orleans. And when people think about New Orleans, they don't think about World War II or like those type of museums. Even though the city did play a key role in World War II. But, and then on top of that, you can spend all day in this museum. So I'm going to have to put the World War II Museum as a maybe checkout. Now, if you're a history buff like myself, then that can go up. But just for the average, visitor to New Orleans, it's a maybe checkout. So that wraps up today's tier list. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Also, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for future videos just like this. And if you want to see more New Orleans videos, feel free to click right here.